Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for listening to Shut Up and Laugh. My name is Brian Trendler. I'm a local podcaster in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm thrilled to be speaking to each and every one of you, my listenership, and now seeing you all on Zoom, thanks to technology and what we're all faced with over the last year. I have a great little podcast that I love producing for each and every one of you out there, and I get to sit across from some pretty phenomenal people every single week. And tonight, I'll be introducing a guy who I'm very thrilled to be sitting with. And unfortunately, we are separated by distance due to the current situation. But first, I just want to mention that if you're interested in being a sponsor of this show, please go to the website, which is simply LaughTech, LAFTECHNW.com/shut up and laugh. And you can look at all the information there. There's options available. You can also go to the Anchor hosting website, and I'll post that in the details later on. I do have a couple sponsors to mention very quickly. Dreamosity, a social media training company. Marcel Allen can teach you all the things you think you know you're doing right about your social media posting and marketing. She can help do it better for you. LT's pet sitting, if you're away, if you're working, if you can't get home in time, she will come to your home and take care of your four-legged friends so you can relax and know that their little tiny legs are no longer crossed. Also, Gentle Frog's custom QuickBooks training, longest name of the industry, but the highest rated QuickBooks trainer in the Pacific Northwest. Rachel Barnett is amazing. And just like Dreamosity, she'll teach you all the things you think you're doing well so you can finesse your business and be as effective as possible. So thank you very much for our sponsors that round out the year in 2020. And we're all looking forward to hopefully nothing but positivity in the year to come. So without further ado, Dan Mills, hello, and thank you so much for being part of our show. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Brian. Good to see you again.
It's good to see you. For the sake of our listeners and our now viewers, we don't know each other that well. But the cool thing is I kind of feel that you're a kindred spirit because some of the things we're doing have some of the likeness to them. I'll explain what that means. You are an amazing stand-up comedian. And we have had you on our stage at the Laugh Tech events for comedy nights. But also I had the joy of hiring you and then letting you go before an event happened right at the beginning stages of the pandemic. So that was fun. I say that with the utmost sarcasm. But let's talk about that in just a minute or two, because I'm finding myself jump ahead. Let's give the background of who you are. I do a very deep dive to all of our interviews, which Dan is now laughing because he already knows what piles of crap I'm shoveling. I look in a few places, LinkedIn, police reports, whatever it takes to get some information about people I'm about to sit across. You are an occupational therapist.
Correct.
We're also a comedian. I gave that up already. And again, you studied occupational therapy at Eastern Washington University. So kudos, you went for the degree, not something you get out of the back of a van. I'm proud of you, unlike my graphic design degree, which no one cares about. And you know what? I'm only going to say one other thing about your deep, dirty, sordid past. You have the coolest quote on one of your social media pages, and it says, "Working to be your dad's favorite comedian and your grandma's favorite therapist."
Yeah.
So you see that feels like it worked itself way into your "tell us what you're doing right now" thing. Tell us about what you do.
Yeah. So as far as my day job,
Your day job to support your comedy habit. Yes.
Yeah. Well, for the past 11 years, I've been working as an occupational therapist, which a lot of people don't know what that means. They've usually heard speech therapist, or physical therapist, but I work in an inpatient setting. So after somebody leaves the hospital and they're too sick to go home, they will come to a center like mine where it is round the clock nursing care, but they're receiving a couple hours of rehab per day. And
so this is physical therapy type of rehab.
It is, but it's occupational therapy.
So thank you. That is, this is one of my questions that you've unintentionally stolen from me. I don't understand what you do, and I feel stupid, but I'm sure I'm not alone. There's probably a lot of people that don't understand. So deep dive into those differentials.
Totally. When we got our master's degree, they let us know, like, hey, you're going to have to always explain what it is you do. And that's totally fine. My dad doesn't even know what I do. He's like, oh yeah, he's one of those occupational physical therapists. And It
He just puts them both together.
right. He just lumps them together because it's
Good.
easier.
What
But
was your degree spelled phonetically?
uh,
Like occupational. Like,
oh yeah,
did they
right.
have to spell it
Got
out
it.
really long? Was it a banner or was it the normal 8.5 by 11?
Right. It was just a normal one, and people are like, "Oh, sweet! So you find people jobs? That's really neat." Uh, which I mean, it makes sense because that is what people typically perceive occupations as. But with my career and the area that I work, people's occupations, usually I'm working with seniors.
Okay.
Uh, their job, their life tasks are surviving and thriving within their home. So
Okay.
whether it's teaching them to, like, let's say they have a big stroke or a illness or injury, teaching them how to do their bathing, their dressing, cooking, cleaning, some of those things where we have to teach them how to do it again. But lots of
Sure.
times there is things like, you just have to get somebody stronger. And so I do a lot of, work with people's upper bodies,
Yeah.
um, working on that. So it's a little convoluted, but the thing that I love about it is every day there's some type of problem solving.
Hmm.
Nothing is one, this thing happens, it goes on this track. It requires a ton of creativity.
Hmm.
Um, I always say 10-cent solutions to dollar problems. So trying to figure out how do we, all these people are on a fixed income. How do we
Yeah.
meet all
Yeah.
your needs with very little money? So it's a
So
good one.
you're essentially teaching people or teaching elderly how to be properly self-sufficient old people? Just
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
get back into the swing of things. I mean, do you do a lot of muscle memory type of work with them? Because that's one thing I remember from some of the experiences I've had where some of those basic things, I won't say get forgotten unless you're looking at like an
Mhm.
Alzheimer's type of patient. But I mean, do you have to deal with those types of things? Because I'm not fishing here, but some of those things can be really almost amusing and yet sad, and you have to kind of keep a certain attitude when you're dealing with these things, right? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so I guess to go to your first part,
I, I, I asked you 10 questions there. I'm sorry.
right,
Yeah.
that we do, every person's a little different. So you treat
Mhm.
a stroke very different than you would a knee replacement.
I
But
would
the
hope so.
whole point is them getting to be back in independence so they can just live their life as it once was.
Hmm.
And there are things where we're we're trying to, they forgot how to walk. Or I have a patient right now who, um, leaning back at like a 45-degree angle is what feels like a normal position for them. So
Oh
as soon as
gosh.
they move, they're going down.
Oh
And
wow.
so there is a lot of retraining of
Okay.
their whole kind of neurological system. Um, and then going through the, amusing and sad kind of mix. Yes, it can be sometimes deeply, deeply saddening. And
Yeah.
then that doesn't mean that you're spared absolutely hilarious moments,
Yeah.
and so I think the part of it is it's a weird thing of being able to connect in the moment with the
Hmm.
person,
Hmm.
and then be able to step back and do like a little review of what just happened.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna make it and not be really bummed out, you have to try and find the funny in there. You have to see the fun and amusing parts.
Sure.
You have to be able to see these people that, um, are still young people inside of their kind of older, frailer bodies.
Yep.
And lots of times we have a great time. And being a comedian, it's great. I can tell the same joke over and over, and lots of times I can just work out material if I need to. So it's
You,
good.
you have a guaranteed audience, right?
Right. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
get 40 minutes of their undivided attention. I
Oh
can't
my
get that at a
God.
bar.
Now, do these I love see I forget all my prepared questions. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Which for the sake of all of our listeners and viewers now, Dan has no idea what I'm going to ask him, but the beautiful thing here is screw my list. It doesn't matter because I love where we're going right now. I adore the fact that you said that these are young, or sometimes, for lack of better words, young, strong minds trapped in deteriorating bodies, right?
Yeah.
So they're there, right? And when you're doing this stuff, are they receptive to laughing? Are they receptive to, again, what kind of the core of this broadcast has always been about? Humor heals. I mean, my business partner Marcel, she hashtagged. I think she created it. She should get a quarter every time someone uses hashtag humor heals, because I believe that wholeheartedly. That's been a huge motivation behind my life.
Mhm.
And I mean, do they react well? Do you see things differently? Do they react differently? And I keep saying react, that's not the right word. Do they act differently? Do they respond differently when you're doing things humorously for them? Like, can
Yes.
you share any of those types of things? Because that just fascinates me about kind of an opportunity you have every day. You know,
Mhm.
like test patients.
Yeah. I think it always starts first because they're in a very vulnerable position
Yeah.
where it's not like an outpatient clinic. You hurt your shoulder, you pay your $25 copay, you get approved from insurance, and you come in and make
Mhm,
that choice.
mhm.
These are people that were so sick that they were able to leave the hospital but not able to go home. So it's not that like they're there against against their will, but they don't have the option of going home. So there's definitely, you have to establish trust with them that, hey, I know what I'm doing, I am going to get you better, we're going to be on the same team. And like I said before, I'm usually pushing them to do something different, or
Sure,
maybe something that they don't want to do.
sure.
But I have this 45 minutes with them. And, I mean, we've both been in conversations where you're with somebody for almost an hour and you don't laugh once. You're
Yeah.
just kind of looking forward to it being over. And so they do respond well because, these are older people. We got to give them breaks during, you can't exercise for 40 minutes straight.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so during the breaks, we'll just talk. I'll ask them questions. I think they really, a lot of my patients, they have so few people asking them what they think about something.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Um, so we'll talk about that. I'll tell them about, my family, tell them funny things that I saw or, saw on the way to work.
Hmm.
Um, like I was working with a lady and today blazing down our street because we had a lot of wind up here.
Hmm.
Somehow an exercise ball got loose from somebody's front yard or something. And we're walking and I mean, we're sitting in their room and I just see an exercise ball rip down the street at about 30 miles an hour. And it's just a normal if you were with your friend at a coffee shop, you'd be like,
You're like,
did,
what in
did
the
you,
hell?
you just see that? What was that? And so there's a lot of those things where it just makes it more normal. And I think when we're having a more normal conversation, they're they're gonna trust me more and they're more
Yeah,
willing to take chances. So
I absolutely love that.
yeah.
Um, can you talk for a minute about what's changed now over the past 10 months? Because I'm assuming, again, I'm making an assumption, which you know what that means. I'm assuming what a lot of what you do is hands-on.
Yes.
How has that changed? Have you not been able to do, like, are you faced with limitations now? How are you working around that? And are the patients still doing okay? I mean, I'm kind of desperate to hear this from, I'm about to call you a horse, from the horse's mouth, someone who's really doing
Right.
these things versus what can I trust on television? What can I trust via social
Right.
media? How has your job changed? And again, is it getting any better? Like, what's
Yeah,
missing?
there are some. Yeah, so I'm very fortunate that I work at it's a smaller family run company
Hmm.
where they really value the presence of animals, children coming in, family members, kind of where it was an inpatient facility, but it definitely had a very community feel. There were lots of activities. Um, our rehab room was kind of like the hub, so we'd have 5 different patients in there with 5 different therapists. We're all laughing, joking around, crosstalk across the room. A lot of fun. Then once the pandemic hit, we really had to be very careful. For let's see, probably about a month,
Hmm.
actually a couple weeks to a month, it was total isolation in room. So people weren't leaving their rooms, meals were brought to them.
Yeah.
um, the baths that people were getting were like bed baths because we just couldn't risk because COVID was just spreading like wildfire
Yeah.
through
Yeah.
these centers. And so now when somebody comes in, well, let me back up, because I think maybe my facility is a little different.
Hmm.
But across the country, nursing homes and like inpatient rehab centers, we haven't been allowed to have visitors.
Yeah.
But that's a big hit to our clientele.
Sure.
Not being able to have their family come in and visit. We have ways to have window visits, um, or other ways where they can communicate. You have iPads, but it's not the same as getting a hug from getting a hug from a loved one,
Of course not. Yeah.
or
Touch,
having
touch
the
is so
grandkids.
important.
Yeah. Uh, so that part has definitely changed a lot.
Hmm.
The amount of isolation protocols that we have based on COVID tests, possible exposure. So if somebody goes to the hospital, even if it's just for like a scare of shortness of breath and comes back,
Yeah.
then they have to have like 2-week isolation period. And so my job has changed a lot in that, rather than bringing people to my simulated kitchen
Hmm.
that I have, or working with them in groups where they're partnering with other people and both people are working on something that they need, it's one-on-one in a room, typically door closed.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely stepped up the amount that I need to be engaging.
Yeah.
And you feel a little bit more on during those times. um, our facility was a little bit different than some other ones in that we were one of the first ones hit really hard by the pandemic.
Hmm.
So there was obviously the one in Kirkland. Ours hit in March, and
Wow.
let's see, I think 95% of our clientele got COVID. We lost about 33%
Oh,
of
so sorry.
our population. Yeah. I got it. My wife, like 35 of my coworkers, it just ripped through. And during those times, you're trying your best, you're bleaching everything, you're borderline
Yeah.
opening door handles with bleach, and it was going. And then, we're getting donations of PPE from local businesses where
Mhm.
like we have these gallons where you're like, is this an old tablecloth, or is this a bedspread? And because there's just such a shortage still.
Yeah.
So it it was wild times, for about 6 months. All of us were doing things that were not our job. I was working as a nursing assistant,
Hmm.
pulling double shifts, and all of us were shifting around. I was buffing floors.
Wow.
I was, it was a big team effort, and it really brought our team closer.
Amazing.
But the way that it is now, it is very, very different. And we have some ways for families to be able to spend some time, but it's one of those things where if you take grandpa out for dinner, then he's got to go do a 2-week isolation
Two
after
weeks.
that.
Oh,
So
that's
it's tough
incredible.
times.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it makes me almost want to just start cracking jokes for some reason, just to get that sort of vision out of my head. But I mean,
Yeah.
huge kudos to you and everyone there at the facility. Do you want to call them out? Do you want to say anything positive about them in case any of them pay attention? The place that you're working. Do you want to give them a nod?
Uh, yeah, you know what? I'll probably hold off
Okay.
on my facility name,
Okay.
but we had some amazing staff members, and we also had a team of 8 nurses from Peace Health up
Oh,
in
wonderful.
Bellingham
Yep.
that actually volunteered to come out and help us.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
so they basically took a furlough afterwards so they could quarantine, and they did a huge help by filling in for some nursing and needs, because we were just, like I said, everybody was out. I mean, it was the
Yeah.
point where most of me and my coworkers were working through COVID. We had it,
Wow.
but we just, yeah. So
Amazing. Um, okay, so you told us what you do, which, by the way,
yeah.
thank you, because a lot of people are still googling what occupational therapist does.
Right.
And you've mentioned some of that, frankly, nightmare that you went through, and
Right.
where you've gotten to at this point, which to me just sounds remarkable. Um, again, for anyone who's listening or watching these for the first time, I do a massive deep dive into what you've done before. And Dan, I've never gotten a more varying, vast, massive amount of previous jobs. And with your permission, I just want to read off a couple, just so
Yeah.
everybody gets an idea as why I was literally saying, what in the hell? How did you, what? You really, because you've been a caddy, you've been a janitor, which by the way, harkens back toward your story as far as why you were great and probably volunteered to buff some floors for a while.
Yeah.
You've been a Trader Joe's employee, so I only recently learned you wore Hawaiian shirts, so you're well versed in that.
Yeah.
Carnival equipment maintenance guy, a camp
Yes.
counselor, oh, and a park ranger.
Yeah.
Dan, what journey were you on between all of these jobs? Were you like, explain what is going on, or maybe also what's next, aside from comedy, because that is
Right.
amazing.
Right.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, fortunately, I think occupational therapy is going to stick. I've been doing that for 11 years, but
It's not
uh,
just a
I
hobby.
started working at I started working at 14 at kind of like a ritzy country club, being a
Okay.
golf caddy,
Okay.
uh, making more money than any 14-year-old should, carrying bags for the super wealthy in Newcastle.
Wow.
And that was a great summer gig.
Hmm.
It was a lot of fun, but not something that's really sustainable when you're going to school. So left that one. Janitor, I just never felt comfortable being at home. I always had to go from one thing to another thing. And so I always tried to have a job during high school. So I was a janitor for a couple of years there. Then Trader Joe's was a great 1 year gig, but I had moved to Spokane and there was no Trader Joe's there at the time. So I had to leave that one. The carnival maintenance guy,
Yeah.
uh,
Let's
so down
dive into
Riverfront
that.
Park.
Okay.
Yeah. So Riverfront Park is a beautiful park in downtown Spokane. And during the wintertime, they have an ice rink. And during the summertime, they have like a small amusement park. I'd put it at like a very small county fair level. And so I was working as maintenance for like the carousel, where you're mostly just trying to take care of really old wood, greasing gears. And they called me over and they said, "Hey, we need you over here now doing this." And they said, "We need to put together this mini roller coaster." I said, "I've never done that before." He said,
But I'll
"It'll
do
be
it.
fine. You'll figure it out as you go along."
And how many
So that's
people
why
got
my kids,
injured that summer? Yeah.
right? And so that's why my kids don't ride carnival rides, because I
Because
know the level of
yeah,
safety that was entrusted to me.
because daddy's
But
damaged goods. Okay.
right, so that was fun. But the job I had my eye on, because there was a very serious time where I thought about being a police officer,
Okay.
was the park ranger one. And that was one of the best jobs I've ever had. I got paid to ride my bike outside. Like, you got to get in adventures.
Yeah.
I did drug busts, stop pedophiles. There was a big
Really?
population that would hand out. Yeah, yeah.
Now,
It
was this still in Spokane?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
the same park. I did a lateral transfer. So
Wow.
um,
Can you can
yeah, so that was
can you
a
do
really
the imitation of Smokey the Bear? Can you do the proper look and imitation?
right.
Only you can prevent. You know what I mean?
Well, what I would actually do is, if somebody was going to be aggressive,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to try and out alpha every single person. So I'd pretend to be Canadian. So like, "Oh, hey guys, park closes at 9. I'm going to need you to pour those drinks out." And people would do it. And it'd
Oh
be
my
so much.
God.
I'm like, just be sweet with them. Nobody wants to fight.
No one says
But
no to a
it was a
Canadian.
great job. I
Oh
know,
my
right?
God, Dan, that's brilliant.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes being the alpha doesn't always win. Um, and that was also where learning how to use humor, you learn to diffuse things a whole bunch
Yeah.
when
Yeah. Well,
you're
plus at
surrounded.
a carnival, you got a bunch of pissed off little cotton candy covered Satanists, little tiny children things running around too, right?
Right.
because that's just horrible.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, my
So
follow-up was,
those
oh,
were all
please
fun.
go ahead.
Oh no, they were all fun gigs, and I feel like all of those things actually built up
Hmm.
into the job that I have now. You know, being a janitor got me uncomfortable with gross stuff.
Yeah,
Uh, Doing security helped me learn how to kind of de-escalate a lot of situations when
sure.
people are getting frustrated. Was it was all in preparation.
Well, plus just how to deal with people from Spokane. I mean, just the just the fact that that you went full Canadian on them, eh? I think that's
Mhm.
brilliant. I mean, that's not being alpha, it's not being beta, it's being C, it's being Canadian. I think
Right.
that's brilliant. Um, my follow-up question was going to be: are there any stories that you can pull from any of those previous jobs? But you might have pretty much nailed it with the Canadian part.
Yeah.
But I mean, is there like it can't
Oh,
so
let me give a little exclusive tip to all the shut up
please,
and laugh
please,
listeners.
yes, yeah, all five of them.
For,
Go ahead.
yeah, for Trader Joe's,
Hmm.
only the managers wear Hawaiian shirts.
Oh,
So if you really need something done, look for the Hawaiian shirt. If it's a t-shirt, they haven't gotten full-time benefits yet.
oh,
So
that's important. Now, see, I don't know if you realize this, and I posted about it. I don't know. It doesn't matter. A few weeks back, I finally went to my first Trader Joe's.
okay. Yeah. What'd you think?
I was very confused.
Yeah.
Very confused. I actually felt like a Canadian down in America for the first time. It was nothing made sense. No brand names I recognized. Everything looks very healthy, which is very scary to me. And I did not feel comfortable. So maybe
Oh,
I could.
you must have missed the center aisle. The center aisles where all the like every single one in their freezer aisle. That's where all the cookies, all the candy,
Oh, can't what?
the ice cream.
Oh,
They have cookie butter ice cream. Just, I mean, it's fantastic.
you just did the French thing over a
I
Trader
did the
Joe's
chef's
car.
kiss.
Yeah,
It's
the
I'm not going to say it'll change your life because you seem like you've had a pretty good life, but
oh,
it's pretty good. It'll
I'm
make your
open for
Saturday.
change, Dan.
Yeah.
I'm hoping for some improvements. Okay, well, yeah, I do know that they have a mean soft pretzel.
Yeah.
Uh,
The Let's
I
see,
have
their
partook.
microwave burritos are pretty good.
Oh, see that? No, that
No.
I don't know if I could do that because I have an air fryer now. I don't know if you've seen The Adventures of Big
Oh
Red.
yeah, Big
So
Red.
I can't I can't use a microwave for a burrito. That seems sacrilegious now, but it's okay.
Yeah.
I
I
have
bet
it.
you could air fry one.
You probably could. That'd be very scary. Dan, tell me about and tell everybody again who's watching or listening what you're doing now with comedy. You are to me. I'm going to get in trouble saying this. You're one of the few comedians I think right now that are very actively in embracing technology and just rocking it. Now,
Oh,
that isn't a
thanks.
comment on the fact that I'm sure you're a multimillionaire now and you have 10 homes and all that type of stuff. I'm saying that you're providing a venue, you're providing opportunity, you're providing exposure, you're paying the comedians. Tell us about what you're doing with the grind. This is all about you right now.
Oh,
Tell me how it
thanks.
started, what you're doing, and how's it going. With the preface going, I already know all the answers, but I
Right.
want to hear it from you because you need to embrace this because you're a badass with this. So talk about the grind.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Let's see. We started kind of the preliminary work back in October,
Hmm.
primarily just because I really miss comedy.
Hmm.
During the heat of the pandemic, I kept writing stand up, but I was working so many odd shifts.
Yeah.
There were a few people doing some outdoor shows that were kind of, on the borderlines of whether or not it's legal. And I didn't want to be a hypocrite
Yeah.
and be a part of some of those with what I was preaching for, as a healthcare provider.
Hmm.
And so I just really miss going up. And I think I saw that the comedy scene that was out there that were most popular were like YouTube live streams,
Yeah. Yeah.
Facebook Live, and comics hated it. everybody was saying, don't mess around with online comedy. It's no fun. You can't hear anybody's laugh. You can't hear, you know, you feel like you're just talking to a screen and it's dead air. And a
Mhm.
lot of people still feel that way. But I wanted to take a hard look at how can I create a venue, because nobody else is doing it,
Mhm.
at least at the time they weren't. And how do I create something that I would want to be a part of?
Yeah.
And so we took a good hard look. I put out some feelers within my local comedy community of, hey, I want to start doing this. We'd done things like let's workshop jokes together. And I said, I want to create just an open mic. And who would be interested in just getting comfortable with it first? So we spent about 2-3 weeks, just everybody getting used to doing a set to a camera
Yeah.
and having, less laughter, different laughter.
Yeah.
We practiced with what mics would look like, and we tried to really lay a good ground layer. And I knew that it's going to have to be my baby, so I'm going to make it exactly what I want it. And after that point, we said, okay, I think we're ready for an audience. And we started inviting some friends, where we just said, hey, let's just have a couple people. We don't want this to be too big and have it be really awful. And then we
Sure.
don't want to show our faces. And it went well. People approached it professionally. We had kind of like a core group of regular people.
Mhm.
And then I said, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot, but use some of my comedy connections that I've made with people. Ask great guy Kermit Apio, uh, the Kermit Apio,
Kermit Apio.
Apio,
Yep.
Apio.
Apio.
I I'd said it so many different ways that
I'm sure
I,
he's
I
never heard the variances.
right. I've started to second guess myself.
Yeah.
But had him on, had a friend of mine who is a great comic out of Vancouver, and a
Mhm.
couple others. And I said, let's just add a little bit of star power and see if we can get some more people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I think what was holding a lot of comics back from wanting to do some of these shows is I don't want to perform to a bunch of comics. And the easiest
Yeah.
draw was saying, hey, I've got an audience. They're well trained in that
Yeah.
they're going to behave themselves, and we've got live laughter. So you tell a joke, you're going to hear something.
Yeah.
And it's really grown from there, where I can reach out and say, hey, we've got 50 to 70 people in the audience. Um, these are the other comics that have been on it and they've had fun. And it just keeps drawing. And now I'm going off of referral basis. I don't even have to work that hard to book it. I mean, we've got
They're coming to you.
right. And these are people with late night TV credits.
Yeah.
If you're the the show is called The Grind with Dan Mills, if you're doing a search on Facebook. I'm terrible about social media promotion. It is my biggest weakness.
Mhm.
Um, maybe I should talk to Marcel. um,
Maybe. Maybe.
yeah, maybe.
She would love Dan, she'd love to hear from you, man.
Yeah,
And be kind. You're not terrible on social media. All your stuff is being updated on Instagram all the time. So I'll make sure that, underneath your name here, I'll put one of those links so people can follow that as well. But
nice.
no, dude, it's been such a joy to watch. And again, all cards on the table. You and I have had a couple conversations about how you're doing what you're doing, because my
Yeah,
company, Laugh Tech, wants to eventually get back into offering the same type of thing. And frankly, copying is technically a form of sincere
yeah.
flattery. We would run it a little bit differently, but obviously
Mhm.
that's a good thing. But what you're doing is working, and I just love it. I've been an audience member now twice. Unfortunately, Thursdays at 9, right? That's
Wednesdays at 9.
Wednesdays. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Wednesdays at 9 is difficult for me. And for the record, Thursdays at 9 are also difficult. It's because I'm old and I'm asleep at that point. But it's been neat to see how many people have been in the audience. Like, that's the biggest thing for me.
Yeah.
It's just been great. I think there were 35, 45 some odd people the first time I was on.
Mhm.
And then last time, like you said, they're like 70 people. There are 3 damn screens, and I
Yeah.
love that. And that has to feel good, right?
It feels great.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I love the fact that you're concentrating on bringing humor to the masses, because right now I love the fact that it doesn't matter where you are, right? I know that's kind of a no duh thing, but do you know how many people realize after the fact, oh shoot, I could have been to that event? No, no
Yeah.
shoot, people, it's online,
Yeah.
and you're using the format that works. It's this one, it's Zoom. It is working. It hasn't gotten any worse, thank God. The Unabomber, butt cheek bombers have stopped being on the majority of the events because they're blocked and able to be controlled by the waiting room and the other features. And you're bringing the funny, man.
I appreciate that,
It's
Brian. Thank
amazing.
you.
Um, does it feel good to you and to everyone else in the comedic network that this is happening?
Yeah. Yeah. I think in our local scene,
Mhm.
there's a lot of people that are just saying, I'm taking a break from comedy until we're able to be live again. Yeah,
Yeah,
just it's not for me.
yeah,
But it everybody that's been a part of it, I've yet to have somebody be like, ugh, tough room, man, or oh, that's a rough,
yeah,
like I did not have fun. Usually every time after, I'm getting messages like, oh my gosh, I know it's not live stand-up, but that's about as close as it could get online. And that feels really great. And
phenomenal.
I love too that, I'm trying to take care of local comics. It's tempting to want to book with all like New York City pro comics,
Yeah,
but I love that there's a set of local comics that are getting exposure,
yeah,
and they're getting an opportunity to play with, the big kids,
mhm,
so to speak, where I felt like that, a couple weeks ago, where you have these people that you've watched live, you've paid $30 to go see them at a theater or at a, you know, at a club.
mhm,
And then it's like, yeah, we're all telling jokes together.
yeah,
And I've honestly felt a little bit like a war profiteer. Like it's not, like it doesn't feel fair. I'm like, I shouldn't be able to get these people to a audience that, yes, it's spread out, but a lot of it's kind of Northwest Washington people. And
yeah,
I feel like I'm saying it all the time on the show. You guys, this is such a big deal that this person's on our show.
yeah,
Uh, and so it's just fun. I've had a
yeah,
lot of people say, thanks for what you're doing for the community. That feels really good.
yeah. Good, good, good. Well, I mean, it's incredibly well deserved, and I feel the same way down here in the Bothell, Linwood, Kirkland, Bellevue, Seattle-ish geography, because when we were able to have our shows with the other company, Laugh Tech, um, it was so great to just provide two venues to the
Yeah.
comedians. And granted, it was a whole different thing. We were charging for the events and we were paying comics based off of how many minutes they were on stage and everything else. And then some of those real expensive ones I figured out how to freaking pay. But I mean, they were so thankful just to have a mic,
Hmm.
and they were so surprised that Marcel and I were so stoked to meet them. They were like, "Oh my God, you're nice people." And again, 25 plus years ago, I did comedy. There's a reason I stopped, as if you're learning right now why I stopped. It's the longest conversation that we've ever had. Um, but it's such hard work, and I forget that sometimes. I forget how hard it is to do what you do. And I didn't realize that, frankly, it hasn't gotten any better from the standpoint. And there's a point here as far as how many times you comedians are treated like crap by certain venues and
Mm.
all those types of things. So it's been such an incredible learning experience for the past 3 years of bringing comedy to the stage at Laugh Tech. Now you're doing it right. We haven't done it. We stopped during COVID. We almost ramped up again in July when we were going to have a chance, and we booked
Right.
a show at one of the venues. Then we had to pull it back, and it broke everyone's hearts. So the fact that you're doing it and it's working, I'm going to get you more audience members, man,
Awesome.
because I'll
Yeah.
definitely put all your digits and your gadgets and your posts and your links and whatever
Yeah.
on your Facebook and everything else, because you guys deserve it up there.
Well, thank you. And
Awesome.
what circling back, one of the things that I love about doing this is being able to create a venue and a show that I would want to see.
Hmm.
You feel some responsibility of like,
Yeah.
it's almost like carefully curated comedy, where like I want to present a diverse lineup.
Yeah.
You don't want to have all white guys, all straight white guys on one audience. It gets
Yeah.
really boring. So, we most of our shows, it's almost 50-50 of female to male comics. There's not as many, so it's something I've been feeling really proud about. The female comics tend to be doing better than the male ones,
Yeah.
and it's great to finally, not finally, because lots and lots of people have known that there are so many great female comedians, but just
Yeah.
giving
Yeah.
another avenue of like, this person's awesome. If you don't know about them, you should. And just being able to promote a wide variety of perspectives, because in a lot of places you're playing by somebody else's rules.
Yeah.
The larger clubs, or some of those, it's out of your hands. You don't really have a whole lot of production power.
Yeah. You've actually almost unintentionally torn down some walls and or ceilings, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. And you do have a diverse group of comedians too, which I really, really like. Really briefly, before I move on to one or two of the last few questions here,
Yeah.
give the audience here an idea of what they're going to expect on those shows. How many
Mhm.
are doing, 2-3 minutes or whatever, how many are doing a 20-minute set, whatever. Give us an idea of what they're expecting in that. Is it 60 minutes? I'm trying to
It's
remember. I've been
it's
drunk during both of them, so I don't remember.
a, it's that explains
It
so
does,
much about the
really.
chat.
That's why I kept the camera off.
It's about a 75-minute show,
Okay.
and full disclosure to everyone here, it was the reason why it's called The Grind. One, because it's a very light pun with my last name being Mills,
Hmm.
but The Grind is just about the talk of the work of comedy.
Hmm.
And it's presented to all the comics as a place to have, you're doing a set, but you're working out new material, you're trying
Trying
new
stuff out.
jokes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Or for some comics, you're dusting off old material that you haven't done in 10 months, and you're trying to get used to how to do those jokes again.
Yeah.
um, so there's about usually 8 to 9 comics. Some of them are doing about 5-minute sets, and then some of them are doing 7 or 8 minute sets.
Okay.
You're not going to get any 20-minute headliners. Sometimes if the show's rolling really fast and the headliner's just killing, or not a headliner, but like one of the last people that's
Sure.
going up is just absolutely killing, I'll just let him keep going, because
Yeah.
everybody's having such a good time.
That's awesome.
And we try and keep it pretty neat and tidy, because at 9 p.m., most people have already been on a screen for a good chunk of the day.
Yeah.
They're probably ready for bed. So I don't do too much material in between. We just want to get them to as many punchlines as
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
So it's been a method that's been working for us. I know a lot of people do different setups. Some it's 30 comics doing 3 minutes. This is just the one where it feels easy enough for me to corral if somebody's having a good show, uh, a great set, that they can kind of work a few things out.
Hmm.
And it's a method that's worked for us.
I love it. Well, I wish you nothing but continued success with your shows. Like I said, I'll post all the information. How can people come find you, and hopefully be a part of your audience. We're gonna pivot. That's my
Okay.
word. That's my 2020 most hated word, pivot, because I just hate
Right.
it. But I want to hear about Daddy Dan. Because,
Yes.
dude, you've been married since 2006, right? You
Right.
got married at age 20 to the lovely Kate Mills.
Yes.
Was her maiden name Grind? Like, is there
Yeah.
something? Anyway, she's beyond adorable. I hope I
Thank
don't get
you.
in trouble for saying that. You have the uh, only paling comparison to my adorable kids. Your kids are just, they look so cool, man. They really
Oh,
do.
thanks.
Explain to me about your dynamic at home. How's it going with the pandemic? Any distance learning humor? I mean, like how are you facing these stressors? How are your kids doing? How are you and your bride doing? Give give me that little look
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, I feel like we've been doing pretty well. My wife is a teacher, and
Mhm.
she's been her job is a education technology coach, which she was doing pre-pandemic, and then her job really ramped up with
You
the
think?
start of all Zoom learning.
You should
And
look into occupational therapy, you know?
right. So she's been, it has been a scramble for the past 10, 11 months, just trying
Uh,
to get a lot of these teachers where, if they've been doing something one way for 20 years, it's tough to learn an all new teaching methodology and
yeah,
trying to get them all
overnight,
prepared.
right?
So she's been great. It's been a nice relief for us,
Mhm.
with her being at home. This is her office. Um, and my kids being able to be at home too. So we haven't had to worry about as much of the daycare scenarios.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
kids, I think my oldest daughter, she's a very independent learner, does great with it. My younger one, really, really missing her friends.
Mm,
But they've both adjusted well. They have one or two kids that they're allowed to go play with masks, go play
yeah,
with their masks on and all that. But I think that's the toughest part, not being able to do some of their usual
sure.
things.
Do they get along good with each other?
Yes, I mean they love each other, but we did make a little bit of a pivot
Oh,
in
oh,
these
oh.
unprecedented times, um,
Hmm,
where we did set up almost like a little office for them up in there's like a little loft area
sure.
where we can just have them separated. But they do pretty well. I've been amazed with their self-sufficiency,
Yeah.
being able to make their own food and
Oh,
do all
wow.
that stuff during the day. And it's allowed, because there's three different schedules in the house, it's
Yeah.
allowed them to all be able to thrive. But you had asked about how they're dealing with it. My one daughter, she's just, when she's done with their schoolwork, her nose is buried in a book, or she's
Oh,
out on a
cool.
walk with friends.
Yeah.
But my other one, I came in, and my apologies if you get the audio portion, if you're just listening on the audio podcast, but I came out and I saw her just staring down the Zoom screen. And she's got, let me see if I can get it in frame. She's just got her hand on the table in the pen, and she's going between each of her fingers like this, just dead eyeing the teacher,
Knifey, knifey, stabby, stabby.
right? Just playing stab scotch.
Oh my
And
God.
and the poor teacher, I mean, she's going to leave her alone, but she just looks like a grizzled war vet, but
Oh
in
my
like a
God.
unicorn onesie.
How
It's
old is she?
she's almost 9.
Oh my God, that's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Um, Dan, your kids sound a lot like mine. I have a 10 and 8-year-old, and the biggest thing I am so thankful for is the fact that, well, two things: that they don't cook for themselves because they can't even burn like warm up water yet. But the fact that they like each other, and the fact
Yeah.
that they're so good with each other. If not, I would literally have one out on the back deck, 24/7,
Right.
chained to a space heater just so I don't get jailed, because I don't take any crap. But that's just been the biggest thing. And yeah, they're both acting and reacting pretty good to the distance learning thing.
Yeah.
We pulled them from the school district where my house is at
Okay.
the last minute because we were going to put them completely on an online program, and that ended up putting us on a wait list a day before school was going to start.
Oh
And
no.
it was just like, oh, like we had no school to put him in. So
Yeah.
then their mother immediately, like within 4 hours, got him registered at that location, and it was perfect. And they had laptops on the way, and everything's good. And again, thank God they take after their mother from the brain cell perspective because they're wicked smart and they're doing good. And I'm so proud, but at the same time, good God, get them out of my house, get them back into school. I want them to have the childhood we had, right? And
Right.
I want them to be able to use spitballs in the classroom. I mean, and beat up the kids you don't like, whatever. I was not a good student, but it's just one of those things. They're missing out on so much. But I'm glad to hear that you it's going okay.
Right.
Do you have any nuggets of genius that your wife would want to pass through you? And that sounded very almost crude now that I've said that, but yeah, like anything that people can take away from this in regard to those situations, any inspiration?
As
I threw a
as
big
far
curve.
as as far as how to help out the kids.
How to deal with these little demons. I mean, lovely children and their
Well,
traumas.
Well, I mean, that it's tough because it's really hard to be a good student if you don't have some of your basic needs met. And if somebody's listening to this podcast, they probably do have access to the food, access to technology, something like that. But I think just making sure that that obviously the kids are well fed and they have sleep and all that, but I think it's great when they do have a spot where they can concentrate. A lot of families don't
Yeah,
have that ability,
yeah,
and something that's tailored to your learner, because I know you and we probably learned a lot differently in high school. And just trying to it's the one time where you can kind of carve out a learning space that is exactly what you need.
yeah,
When you go to school, it won't be that way. So if your kid needs to have fidgets or sit on a wobbly ball or something like
yeah,
that, that this is a great time to do it. That if they need to, as soon as they're on a break from class, go run around in the backyard or jump on a trampoline, they can do that.
yeah,
But just trying to figure out what your student needs to
yeah.
do their best
It's
and
that
get it
release of
done.
energy, because they always learn
Yeah.
better when they're breathing harder, after
Right.
sit-ups or anything. No, I agree 100%. Thank you for sharing. There's a lot of soft kids right now. They're missing out on the calisthenics. They're missing out on the traveling from room to room. Even they're missing out on, frankly, the stress of
Right.
being
Yeah.
in the classroom environment. And without that, I think there's something happening right now that people all have to be aware of. And I do think you can address some of it with humor, right? Get them
Mhm.
laughing, get them listening, get them learning. Or at the same time, give them chores to do that you something that's
Yeah.
burning off that excess energy, right? So
Yeah.
amazing. I again, this always sounds hokey, but I wish them continued success,
Thank you.
because it's really hard. This is a whole generation of kids that are in trouble, and I love the fact that your wife is home and you're able to come home every day. Granted, you're in a hazmat suit and not very huggable, but it's
Right.
important that that environment stays the same as much as possible. So Dan, we're almost done, man. We're
Oh,
almost
okay.
done with the hour. It creeps up quickly.
It
Um,
does.
I want to hear about inspiration. I just mentioned that a minute ago, and it's a perfect tangent. We all have inspirations in some way, shape, or form. I'm curious. In your case, was it someone on TV, public figures, everything from teachers to parents to pastors? Who helped you? Who did you, or even do you still look up to today? Or even who looked out for you? Can you answer that real quick?
Yeah. Yeah. There have been, obviously so many people that have been absolutely foundational.
Hmm.
I think from a empathy and just kindness perspective, had a fantastic youth pastor growing up, but also had a great health teacher in high school that was one of those really above and beyond people,
Cool.
where every kid that was in her class knew like she really deeply deeply cared about you.
That's
And
awesome.
that was something that when I went to college, I wanted to be a health teacher because of her. There were just no jobs and I really valued
Sure.
feeding my young family.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so hence
food
the
for thought.
grad school. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And for comedy, which is a big love of my life, there's been absolutely so many, but I think one of the biggest ones was my grandfather.
Mm.
Just always a very funny person. One of his and I'd say I've adopted this characteristic and sometimes it gets me in trouble, but he just loves pulling the wool over his eyes of
Yeah.
people's eyes.
Yeah. Sure.
And I noticed myself doing that today where um I got a new pair of scrubs and somebody said, "Wow, those are really nice. Aren't those like an expensive brand?" I said, "Yeah, but the guy who, but I got them for 70% off because the first person died wearing them." And they're like, "Re- Really? Like that's a thing?" And I'm like, "No, that's not a thing.
It's
Like,
a
no, I just paid
horrible
money."
thing.
Right. Like, but just seeing what people will believe. And I'm sure it's probably hurt my trust level with somebody. And then I have to mix it up with like three truths later so they know
Yeah.
that they just see the glimmer in your eye. But
And maybe some ice cream or something to
right?
soften the blow, man. Yeah,
But
so we'll have you on again soon, talking about self-deprecating humor. When just not. Oh my gosh, I
yeah,
love that.
so there's been several comedians. I think one of the ones that, if our audience doesn't know about him already, Gary Gulman,
Mm,
uh, who has performed several times here in Seattle. He wrote a special which I think did more. His special called The Great Depression, which was on HBO, did more for mental health than probably 10 or 12 books combined, as
mhm.
far as normalizing it, um, helping people see what mental illness really is like,
Yeah.
but in such a funny way that was so connecting. And so he was great. Not, and I didn't connect so much on the mental um, illness portion, but I love his use of language. And it's just always so smart.
Mhm.
He had a clip on Conan, which was the 50 states abbreviation thing, where it got millions and millions of views, and it was so good. It was so good. But people like that, where you're like, man, that is just brilliant. I wish I would have thought of that.
Yeah.
Those are ones that it appeals to what my brain goes to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. I
Yeah.
love that. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so before we do the James Lipton
Mm,
tribute, it's 3 questions that everyone does not like being asked.
okay.
Um, Give us one thing today you want to leave with the listenership and the now viewership about Dan Mills. Sum you up.
About Dan Mills, to sum me up, I just really want to be known as somebody that cares incredibly deeply, and at the same time wants you to leave feeling better about yourself. I think that's always my goal, and I frequently fail. But um, if somebody can leave an interaction with me feeling like, whether it's they smiled, they feel better about the choices that they're making or who they are, or they feel more valid or seen as a person,
Mhm.
I would be just thrilled.
Then you've done your job. Outstanding. All right, my man. Very cool. All right, let's go ahead and do the James Lipton nod. What is one of your biggest pet peeves?
Hmm. It could be mouth noises, but
Okay.
I do that too much to my wife, like
Okay.
to bother her.
Oh,
Um,
I'm going to interview her next. Okay.
I know, right?
So Matt,
No, but I would say that kind of ASMR
yeah. Oh
noise that
God,
just is
no.
terrible.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I've just lost 60% of my listenership just with that sound. Thank you. Okay, good, good, good. What is your favorite place that you've traveled to or want to travel to?
Favorite place that I've traveled to would probably have to be Norway. We
Okay.
got to go see our family. My I know this isn't like a one word answer, but
No, not
my
even close.
yeah, but my wife was on a reality TV show in Norway.
Oh,
So she's
wow.
a good, yeah. So she did that. Because of that show, we got to get reconnected with a ton of family members over there. And so when we went to Norway, we got to basically have a family reunion
Mm,
for the first time with all these people we'd never met. And now they're some of our best friends.
that's
So
amazing.
it was
That could be the
amazing.
best non-one-word answer for that question ever.
Yeah.
I want to
My
hear all
apologies.
about that game show. No, no, don't. So the last question, you
Yeah.
actually kind of unintentionally answered about when I told you about the Dan Mills question, because you said I want to be known for. So Dad burn it.
Mm,
But now you have to give me another answer. Because the last question is if you could be known for one thing only, what would that be?
great father.
Awesome. I
Yeah.
love it when people go the father route. Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, Dan, thank you so much for being part of this show. I really, really appreciate seeing you again, connecting with you,
Yeah.
giving you some accolades, hearing about your well-deserved heroism, along with your team up at the place, which shall remain unnamed, that you do occupational therapeutic work at, did I say that right?
It's close enough.
It's
Yeah,
close enough. God, well, you said Kermit Apio, so he's going to kick your
it's
butt
true.
for that.
We'll have to send them a pie.
I'm going to end with our little inspiration that I do for you, hopefully, and for everyone out there listening and now watching. When you're out there in between these podcasts, living your life now socially distanced and safe with everyone around you that you know and love, please be a witness, be real, be present to those that you care about. And why do I ask this of you, Dan? I'm glad you didn't ask. Everyone, I'm just challenging you to try it. Give it a whirl, because every day at some point, we just need to be together at the same time, take a moment, and shut up and laugh. Thanks again, Dan. Take care of yourself. Stay safe.
Thank you, Brian. You too.